This is CXO Secrets, the podcast that takes you inside the mind of business leaders and reveals the strategies behind their success. Coming up in today's show.
So I usually see, in that quadrant of type of sales pitch, there's the persistence, which I'll usually respect. If someone is coming persistently, a little aggressive, persistent, I may pick up the phone or answer the email or have someone do it because I have to respect the sales process. They're trying to earn a living. But when it's the pitch that is based on fear, that is based on, well, if you don't take this call, you're risking your firm to this kind of security breach, or you're doing this, that just gets old. It doesn't get anywhere. To me personally, it's a turnoff, and there's ways to give that same messaging. You may be at risk. You may want to see this, right? A good communicator, a good salesperson is really going to get about. I tell my sales partners, the best customer you can get out of me is an educated customer. Educate me, tell me what's going on, and what's going to happen is probably 75% of the time, I'm going to call you saying, you talked to me 6 months ago about this and you explained this to me and I probably didn't get it, or it wasn't relevant to me then, but it's relevant to me now. Let's come in and now I'll give you an hour of my time and now walk me from A to Z on why you think this is really important to me. Now that you have my intellectual attention, because it resonates with where I am today.
CXO Secrets is powered by EDS, going beyond connections. Find out about upcoming C-level events, experiences, and insights at edsxevents.com. Luis Suarez, Chief Technology Officer at H.I.G Capital. Great to chat. Luis, tell me briefly about H.I.G and about your role there.
Sure. H.I.G, we're a private equity firm, multi-strategy. We're coming up on our 30th year. Actually, we just crossed our 30th year. I've been with them 20 years, and my role is really the worldwide global technology function. And that cuts across all the strategies, all the offices. We're in Latin America, Europe, the United States, 67 billion AUM, about 120 plus portfolio companies on the private equity side. Credit side is probably about another 130-ish. So we're in private equity, all different sizes, credit, distressed debt, biohealth, infrastructure, realty, and then take all of that, and we've got a European version. We've got some of that in Latin America. So it's a pretty diverse private equity firm.
Big operation, like you say there. And as the CTO, if you could encapsulate what your responsibilities are, how would you do that?
To really try to run as fast as the business is running. We're very entrepreneurial. We still, and I'm really excited about that, we're very entrepreneurial in nature. So we will pivot into a new strategy in lightning speed. The invest professionals will get involved on a theme and start investing in that theme in a very intelligent way, but very quickly. We can move really quick. And so as a technology function, we can never be the hindrance. We always have to be striving to get to a yes, to be additive, not to be this staunchy, just, no, we can't do this. No, that's not going to happen. That's not an option. We have to find a path forward to be part of the solution and enable the business to do what they need to do.
Yeah, while managing risk as well, and I guess your colleagues in the CISO space and in the CIO space, they are also wanting to enable the business as much as they can. But you do have to manage risk at the same time to make sure that you are doing what you're doing responsibly, safely, securely for the assets that you have under management there.
And that's correct. And so the security function rolls up into my group. I have a great partner in that. I have a fantastic CISO who we collaborate. We work through issues. He came from an operations background, so it really helps. But really, the two key words that we try to live by is operate securely. And really, security is not this little box. It's just security. We've made security part of the entire technology function. We start a project. Security is our partner in there, having that conversation in the beginning. From the beginning to the end. So the security is never a surprise. We never have to say, oh, that's a great idea, but we didn't think about how to make it secure. It gives birth in security, and we make adjustments for it. And it's all, like I mentioned, it's that trying to get to yes securely.
Yeah. Collaboration key,
Yeah.
like you say, and sometimes an element of negotiation as well. And that's what I want to lean into for our chat today. Now, just going back very briefly on your background, you have a bachelor's degree from Duke in computer science and economics, your master's from Miami on computer information systems. But I notice you also have a certificate from Harvard University Kennedy School of Government in mastering negotiation. So that's where I thought it might be a good opportunity for us to explore your take on negotiation strategies and techniques for leaders in this digital age. And I think a good starting point could be how you view the importance of mastering negotiation in digital leadership roles. This was a course you went on. This was something you deliberately went and did,
Yes.
feeling it would be good for not only your business but also for your career as well. So, what did you pick up then? If you could summarize that, what is it you took away from that?
So what was very interesting, I went in there for the point of view of honing my skills in your traditional uh, buyer type negotiations. I'm buying all this product, services, and what I came out of there was really realizing that everything is kind of a negotiation to some point with it,
Yeah.
whether it's projects that you're doing, dealing with your staff, and one of the key really principles that was great is a successful negotiation is not defined by having a winner and a loser. It is really about because you're going to come back to those same people to have relationships, collaborations, further negotiations. It's really about in a good negotiation, both sides walk out of there feeling like they accomplished something. They got a fair deal. They walked out with better when they walked out than when they started to it. And that goes to everything that I do in my daily life. As far as a CTO, I have to convince our board to invest in technology, in security, and these are things that sometimes you're not going to see that ROI right away. You know, we talked a little bit about security. Security, we're constantly investing, and really, it's not like you have a scorecard every day. Well, today we were 100% secure. Today we were 90% secure. You have to really sell, negotiate this, why they need to invest, not spend, invest. And it goes to everything. And you have to build that relationship. And then how you negotiate really plays a critical part into that.
Negotiation and persuasion, ultimately they're kind of two things that go hand in hand. You want something and you need to try and persuade somebody to let you do that, whether that is giving you permission, whether that is giving you the funding to do it. But like you say, there needs to be a kind of win-win. Ultimately, that's not always straightforward to understand what those bargaining chips are, though, is it? How do you understand what are the different levers you've got?
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, when it's easier if you're going to somebody for the third, fourth time, you've built that credibility. But in that first time, as you say, you don't know. You don't have any credibility. You don't have any of that relationship chips to lean on. So you have to first of all listen. That is the most important trait that a lot of people will not really pay attention to. I had a vendor that came in and they had a junior salesperson, and I was talking about what H.I.G needed, what we needed to do, and the young lad, God bless him, but he kept interrupting, kept jumping in, and his senior tapped him and said, and I was about to kind of coach him a little bit and said, listen and listen intently. The person on the other side is going to give you a lot of information. Sometimes it's what they tell you, what they don't tell you. And so it's that learning process. So you need to understand who's on the other side, what motivates them, what are their needs. Usually somebody will tell you what they want, but you need to try to figure out what they need. And if you base things around what they need, the wants will melt away or they'll merge and they'll start to become part of the solution, part of where we need to end up. And once you get there and they really feel that you understand that, they're negotiating with you instead of you negotiating with them. What I mean by that is they're starting to find ways to meet you in the middle. They're starting to realize, well, I really need this, but I know I might have to give this up. And I'm not really asking them to give anything. We're just, as you said, these levers, we're starting to move the levers together. and reach that equilibrium where we get to a point where it's like they are buying into the process, they're buying into the end goal. And more importantly, what I really think is the negotiation or the relationship doesn't end with that conclusion of agreeing to something. Now, whatever you've agreed to, usually we have to go implement or we have to oversee. And I want them, this is where the collaboration part comes in. They bought into it, they were part of the negotiation, they were part of the solution. So now they are my partner in making this work and sustain it. Because I would have to go back to them at some point. No project goes flawless. So as it has problems, we can go back and you have those little mini negotiations or collaboration, and they become your partner. And that's really that transition from adversary to partner. Really, you start to build on it, and those future negotiations become just that much more robust and simpler. And instead of you pulling from them, they're pushing the ideas onto you. They actually are negotiating favorably with you because they want to get to that same positive event. If you have a negative negotiation, that next conversation is just a lot harder. But if it ends positive, you are now, that next conversation is just further along.
And this is the difference, isn't it, between sort of tactical and strategic negotiation, building these relationships in order to have in your role and professionally a long relationship such that it's not a transactional negotiation. It's a strategic one. It's one that you're building up over a period of time with the knowledge that you're going to keep on needing to engage with one another. The other thing that is in there, though, is empathy. You know, going into that room and being on receive, not being on transmit, understanding where the other person is at, understanding their needs, building up that empathy muscle. And even though you might want something, understanding what the other person wants, they sound to me like big keys here.
Oh, definitely. Those are foundational skills, and you develop those, you hone them over time. As a technologist, you know, you'll hear the initial things and you get excited and you want to start offering solutions and you have to just hold back and just take, I try to tell myself, listen for an extra 10 seconds, listen for an extra 30 seconds, whatever. And I'll still kind of coach myself in my head to give that extra listen, because then you get that next layer of information that gives you further insight. And then the next step to that is really intelligent questioning, trying to draw out what you think you've just heard or you haven't heard. You know, I really want to emphasize that it's not only what they tell you, but what they don't tell you is sometimes just as valuable. And so you ask the question, well, I heard you're interested in this and great, but is there a reason why we didn't talk about this, or is this not a concern? And sometimes you'll explore another avenue like, well, I didn't think of that. And yes, that's equally important. And you start this collaborative conversation that the noise just starts to fade away and you start focusing on the important things and you're building. And once you connect on that, the rest of the negotiation is just very tactical. You've already taken care of the strategic. This is where we're going to go. And they want to help you solve those other issues. And again, be part of that solution. I can't say that enough. It's that once the person across the table is part of the answer, it's amazing what you can accomplish, short term and long term.
Like you say, these are foundational negotiation skills, but they are timeless in a way. But here we are midway through the 2020s. We also have access to powerful data and digital tools, don't we? So I just wonder how you've seen negotiation maybe change, what additional tools we have, thinking about AI, but data in general, perhaps, what roles they have to play in negotiation now.
Oh, well, that's just what that does is I now come in better prepared. I have more. I do a little bit more homework. I can do more homework now in a shorter time than I would have had before. You know, generative AI. You can go into your generative AI products, and if I'm going to talk to a vendor for the first time, well, I will go in there and just do some prompting to understand what is this vendor about, what is their history. If it's a product, I will have it give me a quick education on the product. I want to be an informed party of the conversation. I still want them to try to teach me, but I want to have a base knowledge. So at that point, we can have a very productive conversation so that it becomes a two-way conversation and they can really expand on the pieces that I didn't get enough information on. So it takes the ability to do homework, and to learn more about the other side or the problem, right? The research, the data might be not so much who's sitting across the table, but I may want to understand what are the top 10 issues facing a project for a data warehouse. What are the, these kind of things, and really help me hone my initial talking points or questions that I want to answer. So it just makes me more prepared. I think it allows me to make better use of the time.
And it builds respect as well. If I go into a meeting with somebody, maybe they've got an expectation of where I'm at, but in terms of trying then to meet them where they're at, if already you are well researched, if not well versed, at least you can demonstrate that you have put the effort in to understand their challenges, their problems, their industry. Then the respect grows and they're more likely to open up. And if nothing else, it saves you time, because very often these meetings aren't all that quick.
No, to your point, so you raised two great points, right? The first one is in that we talk about that foundational collaboration, that foundational relationship building. If you come in well prepared, there is that automatic respect. Your time is valuable, is what you're really communicating to the other side. And so that takes the anxiety levels down, that the defenses come down a little bit, and that's great. And then your other point, which is really great, if you're able to get your knowledge, whether it's about the topic or the person on the other side, to a certain level, then you make a lot more productive use of the time, and you can focus on you can start getting to the real issues versus the initial introductory topics there. You can really jump into it, and it's great. And I've seen the difference. In my time, as you get a little bit older, a little wiser, a little bit more managed, and you go back and you look, and you go back in retrospect, like, well, that 10 years ago would have been a longer, drawn out conversation just to get here. And you look back like, wow, I had more information. Instead of taking 3 meetings to get to this point, in that first meeting really got almost there. And we spent the follow-up meetings really in what I call it that tweaking, fine-tuning. You get into like, hey, we now agree in principle. Now let's just work out the details. And again, that respect factor makes those details really just trivial on both sides.
Yeah. Something else we've spoken about here on CXO Secrets as well is the role that AI can play in self-development, AI as a teacher. And it strikes me that in negotiation as well, particularly if you're going in and if part of your negotiation is a pitch, for example, or you are trying to tell a story, using AI to help refine that story, to help summarize your points, to help you make sense yourself of how you're coming across and the points that you're making, it can certainly help you. You can even get AI to ask you questions as well. You can get it to kind of do role playing as well of the other part of the negotiation, so that maybe you've got questions to some difficult questions that you might be faced with in a meeting too.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you're putting it, because one of the techniques I've been using and recommending to my staff is if you're writing an email or you're writing a pitch, is put it into generative AI and something as simple as summarize it for me. Because one of the big things that happens is message sent is not the message received. So it is amazing when you do that. It could be as simple as a 1-page email, you put it in, you ask it to summarize, and when it comes back with, you're like, oh, that's not what I really intended. And that has become an invaluable tool. And I've done that with emails. I've done that with notes that I'm going to use for something, PowerPoint presentations, put in there, give it back. And it is exactly, it's that independent third party just coming back at you and saying, and then when you look at it, you're like, ooh. Or other times like, okay, yes, I'm close. It's summarizing what is in there, and sometimes a little reordering, whatever. And then with the way the technology is evolving, to your point, you can almost have this conversation on the generative AI to ask it more questions about that email or those notes, and you can draw additional ideas that you just weren't thinking with it. And so it is a tool that I push a lot to my staff when they're going to make a really elaborate pitch. We in the technology world, sometimes we tend to get a little too technical. At least my younger staff does, and I say, put it in there and just have it read it back to you. And they themselves have been able to help develop themselves, so the work product is better. And then when they're in their meetings, you to your point, it's almost like they've already done this. They've already had someone questioning them on that topic, and you can just notice that it just flows so much better.
Your piece of advice earlier on was to take that extra 10 seconds to listen to what the other party has to say. It strikes me as though actually taking maybe not 10 seconds, but to listen to what it is that you have to say before you say it is 10 seconds well spent. And Gen AI tools are certainly well prepped to help you do that. I feel as though we should absolutely cover the fact that while we are talking about good negotiation skills here, effective negotiation skills in the workplace, they aren't the only ones that we see or experience as well. There are different approaches to negotiation. There are the empathetic negotiation. There are also some more aggressive negotiation styles as well that we see. Are they always not productive? Are these more aggressive bullying's probably too much of an angle on it, but are there times for that, or do we go no, it always needs to be the empathetic approach?
No, there's no such thing as a one size fits all. There are times where you need to employ a little bit of a more aggressive approach to it. It needs to be a little bit balanced. I'm not a fan of the go completely aggressive, go completely, it's probably not the right word, but that bullying kind of approach.
Yeah.
Because I think it might work tactically, but long term, if you have to have another negotiation, another conversation, they're going to remember that. But I do think by no means is it always needs to be this very calm, passive, the world is all rosy kind of negotiation. There are times that you need to show your muscle, your weight a little bit in the conversation, but you got to pick that right time, and that cannot be your only tool. If that is your only tool in negotiation, you're gonna have a lot of one and dones, and when it comes the next time around, you're just not going to get the proper attention, the benefit of the doubt. Kind of a perfect kind of story with that is, if you build a relationship with a vendor for services, there is a time to squeeze on pricing to get the best possible pricing. But also there are times that you have an emergency, and I'm very well known for it. If I'm in the middle of a crisis, I will call that vendor who I believe to be a partner, and I'll say, I need your help. I'm not in a position to go ahead and tell you need to give me this rock bottom price because I need the help now. I need to solve this now. But the benefit there, right, of not using those bullying tactics when it was on the other way is that I'll get treated fairly.
Yeah.
And I can really tell you in all my years, those vendors will do two things for me. They will get me the right resource right away, and when the invoice comes, it's a fair price. It's a fair price because I've treated them fairly when I've been happy and when I've not been happy with it.
Yeah.
But it is a balancing act.
And it's understanding the longer term piece of that relationship that you're building if negotiation is about a relationship. Of course, negotiation isn't just something that we have in face-to-face interactions or, whether it's a vendor-supplier relationship haggling over price. Sales, we are all being sold stuff every day, whether that's face-to-face or whether that's through email campaigns or marketing, advertising, whatever. And sometimes I think we also do see aggressive is probably the wrong way of putting it, but there's certainly a certain angle on how we're sold things using aggression or fear, for example. And do you see that as the same? Actually, you can be the boy who cried wolf with sales, perhaps, whereas really you would be better off developing a relationship with a prospective customer where you were a little bit more realistic, nurturing a longer term relationship.
Yeah, so it's funny. So I usually see, in that quadrant of type of sales pitch, there's the persistence, which I'll usually respect. If someone is coming persistently, a little aggressive, persistent, I may pick up the phone or answer the email or have someone do it because I have to respect that. I have to respect the sales process. They're trying to earn a living. But when it's the pitch that is based on fear, that is based on, well, if you don't take this call, you're risking your firm to this kind of security breach, or you're doing this, that just gets old.
Yeah.
It doesn't get anywhere. It's not going to me personally, it's a turnoff. And there's ways to give that same messaging. You may be at risk. You may want to see this, right? A good communicator, a good salesperson is really going to get about. I tell my sales partners, the best customer you can get out of me is an educated customer. Educate me, tell me what's going on,
Yeah.
and what's going to happen is probably 75% of the time, I'm going to call you saying, you talked to me 6 months ago about this, and you explained this to me, and I probably didn't get it, or it wasn't relevant to me then, but it's relevant to me now. Let's come in, and now I'll give you an hour of my time, and now walk me from A to Z on why you think this is really important to me. Now that you have my intellectual attention, because it resonates with where I am today.
Yeah. It's been great to negotiation with you for the last half an hour or so, Luis. We'll have to leave it there. But before we do go, there are some quick questions that we ask to all of our guests, and I want to put them to you as well. This show's called CXO Secrets. So I have to ask, what is your secret? If you were to put your modesty to one side for a moment, tell us what key attribute you believe has enabled you to achieve what you have. What would you say?
It comes back to, and I know it sounds like I'm repeating, but it's that collaborative nature in its widest definition. With my staff, I put myself in their shoes, having grown up in the industry, having worked all the roles, literally all the roles, from entry-level analyst all the way to CTO. That's been valuable, and just really trying to put in their shoes and mentor and nurture and get that, and then dealing with other departments. It's just building that partnership. This is a very small ecosystem globally. I don't know how many times I run into the same people years later at different firms, at different things, and they always remember that last conversation, that last relationship, and you can pick it up and build it. Employees the same way. I'm proud of every employee that leaves my organization and moves on to another organization. They do well. We consider them alumni, and we stay in touch with them. And it's that great, just that kind of ecosystem doesn't happen by accident. It takes effort, and I pride myself. I enjoy it. It's fantastic.
We do a pass the question here where you get to put a question to a future guest on the show, whoever they may be. We have a question to you from a previous guest, and I have a feeling that your response to this might be similar to your secret as well. The question is, if you could describe your leadership style in one sentence, what would it be?
Be collaborative. It's not a proper sentence, but it really is that, always try to be collaborative. I guess if I would give it a little bit more, and I know I tend to be a little long-winded on this, but because I enjoy talking about this, it's really about, leave the ego at the door, be collaborative, be in a room, and everybody should be able to forget that I'm the highest ranking technology person in the room. Collaborative. When I'm there with my direct reports, with my analysts, I will tell them the CTO is not in the room. Luis Suarez is in the room, who's a lifelong technologist and is a member of this team. Let's work through the problem. Let's work through the answers. When the meeting's done, the CTO can opine on what is the right answer. But right now, the CTO is of no value here. It's the collaboration. It's the experience. It's drawing out the answers to it.
Yeah.
And that has worked. I have a very long tenured team. And as I said before, I'm proud when someone leaves because they've grown beyond what we have and they're alumni.
Sometimes it's about leaving the ego at the door and taking the humility in with you, and then picking it up again on the way out, because that's what sometimes you need in leadership positions. But yeah, I get that. Thank you.
I had some great leaders over the years who instilled that in me and showed it to me. It wasn't something that I organically created on my own. I was very lucky to be in those environments where I saw that, so I was able to model it.
Yeah, well, that's collaboration once again, isn't it? That's picking up things from people who you respect, from other leaders. Finally, Luis, what question would you like me to put to a guest on a future episode of the show?
Wow, putting me on the spot. I always ask people, what are they most proud of in their career? And the reason is, it's always going to surprise you what they answer. It sometimes may not be related to their current role, or it might not even be related to their actual industry, but something they've been involved with to it. And that gives you insight into who the person is.
We've not had that question yet on CXO Secrets. I'm looking forward to asking it. For now, though, Luis Suarez, thank you so much indeed for joining us on CXO Secrets.
Thank you for having me.